All right, we're set up here. So, just wanted to hop on here and provide kind of an update on the trading. It's July 13th. The last update I did was kind of like a month ago. And maybe just to kind of recap, coming off the end of April, challenging, realized, hey, some things aren't right. We need to take a step back and figure that out. And so, since like the first week of May, things have been really improving. And so, since kind of our last, or since that time in May, we've gotten 50% kind of out of the drawdown, and so that's super awesome. You know, Maybe I'll just go through kind of where we're at strategy wise, what that looks like, and then kind of talk a little bit more about challenges, things I'm working on, all that type of stuff. So, in terms of kind of what I'm trading, I'm generally trading kind of the break and retest strategy with momentum during the New York Open from 9:30 Eastern until 11 a.m. Usually, if I haven't found a trade by kind of 10:30, usually not going to take it. Price slowed down by that point, and it's unlikely that there's going to be anything great. I'm trading weekly options on the large cap tech stocks, or really just any kind of large cap stock that has tight spreads and enough volume. Uh, Typically looking anywhere from 3 to 5 days expiration at this point. I was trading a lot of zeros, but I was finding that with the slippage, the price could be higher than where you entered, and you could be break even. And so switching to weeklies, the contracts hold a little better their value, even on kind of dips and drawdowns. Obviously, you want to be selling on big pops. The premiums, will spike, but just in terms of more of a true, from where you entered, kind of upside, it's been better. Also, looking forward to kind of single stock futures that are coming at the end of July. I think I'll probably try trading those as well, just because they'll be tick for tick, but also levered. So looking forward to that. And basically, yeah, break and retest strategy. So previous day high and low break and retest off key levels, which are typically 4 hour, highs and lows, even sometimes 1 hour highs and lows. And then depending on, the time and place of things, sometimes I'll use the opening range break as a setup as well. I'm typically executing on the 1 minute chart, but more recently have been using a lot more of the 5 minute chart to kind of manage my trades, and then also understand within, as I'm executing on the one within the 5 minute, where we kind of at until that candle closes. And more recently, that's had a lot bigger impact. I'm really taking kind of 1 to 2 trades a day. Typically, it's kind of, one loser and I'm done, 2 break evens and I'm done, and one winner and I'm done. So, and up until kind of, well, really, yeah, more recently, it's been sized down since the turn in kind of May, to really focus on my hit rate and trade selection. So what I was finding was, when I sized up, I was having too many losers, even relative to the winners. Yes, there was an issue of, hey, winners need to be bigger than losers, but I was also finding that losing trades were by far too many relative to how many winners I would find. And so I knew I needed to kind of tighten up my selection. And really, it wasn't about the how much I made or how much I lost. At that point, it was definitely more of, hey, I need to find trades that are winners more often than some of these losers. And so that was kind of the big focus. And so I used static risk reward for that, just risking X to kind of make 2X, or 1R to make 2R. And because I was sized down, I really didn't have the ability to scale out of positions. And so with the 1R and risk and 2R kind of take profit, the hit rate was super important in order to be profitable. Not everything hit 2R. Some things would hit 1 or 1.3, but the P&L curve since then has been a lot smoother. And I'll kind of talk about, it looks like, since that point in May, the trade win rate has been 59% on the dot across, let's call it, actually this is, what is that, 25, probably like 60 trades total. And we've won like 36 of them. And you're looking at a profit factor of 1.5, definitely. And that's what I'm going to talk about here in a second, is how we're going to try and improve that profit factor. From a day win percentage standpoint, we're right around 59.5. So I would like to see those a little bit higher, but I do know that those are profitable with a 2-to-1 kind of risk reward. And so what I've been noticing in my trading lately is, okay, my selection's a lot better, but the trades that are winners, I don't really have the ability to allow them to run because of my fixed risk reward. And so now I'm going to size up a little bit back to kind of where I was before. Because what I realized was I was sizing up before, but I really didn't have a good enough hit rate for that sizing to be effective. And I wasn't managing kind of risk appropriately. And so we're going to size back up and see if we can just continue with more or less the same statistics, with a positive P&L curve. We're creeping back higher and really just focused on taking those high quality setups. And then now basically what I'll do is at 2R, I'll take off half the position, and there's some discretion in that, but just about 2R, I'll take off half the position and then let the rest of the position pretty much run. And if it comes back down to break even, definitely take it off. And if it comes back down to even, maybe back to that 1R, potentially could take it off. Just depends kind of where we're at with the trade and how it's going. So that's new as of kind of yesterday or really today. So took one trade today. It was a loser on Apple. So that's always great. Right when you size up, you take a loser that is double the size of the losses that you were taking. But it's okay. Been here before. And maybe I'll talk about some of the kind of biggest mistakes that I made more recently. And a lot of them had to do with, I'm pretty good at identifying, what looks good on the higher time frame and what kind of my top watches are coming in. Some trades that start really good on the open, meaning they have relative strength, they come over the key level that I'm looking for. I'm a bit antsy to kind of take that trade and not, and I would even call that like FOMO, like fear that I'm going to like miss the trade if I don't take it now, and not really understanding that like there's probably going to be an obvious kind of entry point or even like a secondary entry point. A lot of the trades that I end up taking that end up working out, I end up seeing that there's actually multiple entries that I could take if I was just patient enough. And one of the trades, last week that I took was on NVIDIA, and it's a good example. It came up over previous day high, held for like a minute or two. I saw a little pop with buyers and I kind of entered that trade there. However, shortly after that, failed that level, took the L, and then it reclaimed thankfully, I had enough confidence to re-enter that trade. And then it ended up working out and had a green day. But if I could, eliminate that first L because of just fear of missing out that it's going to run, or I don't think it even had pulled back yet. And so there was another example of Hood, went long on Hood over. Really, I shouldn't have taken this trade because it was a reclaim of previous day low, looking for a bounce off that, and it reclaimed previous day low for like 3 minutes actually. But I told myself I wanted to see a 5 minute candle close above it, and on the fourth minute, I got impatient, took the trade, and then it ended up on the fifth minute, it ended up failing hard to close red on the 5 minute and reject previous day low. And so that was one thing that allowed me to start feeling like I should incorporate the 5 minute a little bit more, just to get, understand the time of when I'm taking it. And, it definitely helped on the Apple trade today, and managing a little more on that. However, I need to be mindful of kind of momentum slowing down on the 1 minute and, giving it more room on the 5. And so that's a little bit, these are the nuances that come with kind of, all right, I've established kind of what strategy I'm trading, and I've improved my selection, and now it's just, fine tuning the execution of it, fine tuning, if this happens, this is what I want to see, otherwise I'm not going to take it, or just kind of those quote unquote rules around kind of your system. And the discipline has been pretty good in terms of, not really going on tilt, not really interfering too much with trades. That was something that would happen, is I would feel that this or that was going to happen, and it would just be noise kind of on the 1 minute, versus allowing it to either go to my take profit or hit my stop loss, interfering with trades. And I'm at the point now where if I feel like it's going to do something, and let's say I'm break even or something, and I feel like it's going to go to my stop loss, I should just take it off at break even. I will just let it go to my stop loss, because the last thing that I want is for me to take it off at break even and then it work out. Like, that feels worse than taking the L. And so it's little things like this around a system that make you profitable and more profitable over a long period of time. And then, just continuing to keep my losers short, or, smaller, as they come across the kind of invalidation piece. The TradeZella app that I have is super good, because I journal all my trades, and what I was feeling, what I was thinking, what maybe why this was a bad entry, or how I would have managed it different. And I can ask it, what types of things have I struggled with more recently, and I should work on. And let's see, I can pull it up here. Coming into this week, I asked it what were the things I struggled with kind of the first couple weeks of July, and it was waiting for full confirmation before entry. That's kind of what I was talking about. Make sure to take trades that are aligned with the pre-market plan. There was one day where I was actually looking to go short on Hood that day, and I ended up flipping my bias and then wanting to take it long over previous day low. There was also on that Hood trade, it quickly invalidated my thesis. However, it slipped like pretty far, and so the loss was a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be. And so just trying to react quickly when, hey, clearly price action is telling you otherwise, and you need to take the trade off. And then the other thing was just keeping my size consistent. Last week or the week before, I told myself, like, all right, I'm going to start sizing up. And, it takes a little bit of, confidence, especially coming off losers, right? Coming off a loser today, it's going to be hard for me to want to take that full size again tomorrow, or the next day, or whenever I see that next trade, just knowing like, it's going to be an even bigger loss. And the psychology piece is definitely the hardest part for me right now, about just managing the ups and downs. Specifically, a couple weeks ago, there was a week where I had 3 losses in a row to start the week. And, it's crazy how just that alone will, put you in this headspace of just really doubting, what am I doing? Why does it feel like every trade, because there's some trades where it's like, you did something wrong and that's what led to the loss. And then there's, trades where you realize, that was just the probabilities not being in my favor at that point. And that's how the Apple trade was today. And I'm very okay with just sitting with that. And most of the trades that week where I took them in a row, they were valid trades that, I was able to live with. However, it was just messing with my psyche and, just wondering, man, well, how many losers am I going to have in a row? Like, this is a, terrible streak. And thankfully that following Thursday, I ended up having a 4-hour trade that wiped out all those losses and ended up making me green for the week. And so that's where that 60%, win rate really comes into play. It's realizing that, like, 4 out of 10 trades, like, you're not gonna, profit on, and just keeping your head on straight, being able to execute as if, you aren't on a losing streak or something like that. It's hard to really understand that, psychologically at least, that each trade is completely individual to all the other trades. They're, mutually exclusive. One doesn't impact the other. Your psyche can make you think that they do, but they don't, unless it's obviously a re-entry on the same trade or something like that. But so that's just something that continue to have to battle with, as well as, the piece of when you size up, you're taking bigger losers, you're seeing yourself up a larger amount than you're used to, but you're not taking the trade off yet because it hasn't hit your TP. And so those are all things that are part of the process. And I'm glad that I kind of took that step back when, things weren't working in May, or at the end of April, because that's the primary goal. When you recognize that, it's like, hey, let's stop the bleeding. Let's get back to some easy money trades, some base hits. Maybe we need to refine some things. And a lot of things needed refining at that point. And then a couple things were like, on top of the, it would reclaim a level and I would take the trade quickly, needing to wait for more displacement above the level and then for the retest and then confirmation before I enter. That will help me with those fake outs of it popping over the level, holding for a little bit, and then failing kind of on the 5-minute. You want to see it base above and kind of maybe consolidate for a few minutes, pull back to the moving averages, something like that. And it's hard to remember all these things as you're trading, but the more repetition that I get with those, I'm starting, and I've actually passed on a couple trades more recently where I've noticed they don't really give me displacement or a clear retest. And I'm actually happy about those. Like, they would have worked out, but they might work out 1 out of 5, but 4 out of 5 times I just get smoked. And so being more patient, waiting for a clear entry, like that's something where, months ago, I would have been so devastated. Oh my gosh, I missed that trade. I missed that move. I knew that was going to happen. Like, all these, feelings. And now I'm at this place where it's like, if I don't participate, I'm not impacted by whatever happens if I'm not participating. And these are like small nuances where, whether the P&L is showing it, you can tell that your trading is starting to transform just by how you think or feel about certain things that do or don't happen. For example, just being able to kind of take losses better and not feel any type of way like you're a terrible person, or I need to make that money back, or there's a number of things that you feel whenever that happens. And or just like, how amazing you are if you hit a trade or you make money, or it's and then just also just having more patience in terms of allowing the trades to come to you versus like coming into each day thinking like, I need to find a trade. The more kind of I do this, the more I see, market open, trade around. I'm not really missing too many setups I can't say that that's a big mistake that I've made, or have a hard time identifying relative strength. I think early on too, I was willing to take trades on a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have because they were harder to manage risk, i.e., Tesla, Meta, things like that. And I've just completely kind of blocked those out, and now AMD's kind of in that camp. Things that I can't manage risk on, like I don't care if the setup's amazing, I'm not taking it because it's more important for me to be able to manage risk, than catch a winner that is amazing. So kind of talk through a lot of that stuff there, and it's hard. It's kind of nuanced, like this whole trade selection thing. There's not something that I can really point to in terms of, oh, this is improving or this is not. It's more just like this feeling that I'm processing price action better. I'm processing setups better, because when you're trading on the 1 minute in New York Open, you're having to analyze so many things so quick that there is this pressure of like, am I going to be able to process it all fast enough and make the right decisions? Because in trading, it's like you get paid for your decisions. And man, you can lose money really quick. You can also make it really quick, but you can lose it really quick. And so decisions are a huge piece of it, and not letting your emotions drive those decisions. And so even little things like, now when I'm in trades, I'm more calm and I'm able to think more clearly. Before, when I first started, like all I could look immediately when I entered a trade, all I was looking at was the P&L. What was it going up? Was it going down? How much am I going to win? How much am I going to lose? And I totally forgot what was even going on the chart. Wouldn't look at SPY cues, wouldn't, really understand, okay, where's my stop loss going to be? Like now I'm able to, I might still feel some type of way, but I'm able to look at the trade logically, know where my stop is, know where my take profit is, and let it do its thing. And that's a nuanced thing that doesn't get talked about enough. That is super hard, as well as just the fading of some of these emotions of hesitation, tilt, doubt, and just overall just better execution too, that which goes along with that patience piece. The other thing has been just like slight refinements of my edge kind of around criteria that I want to see. I'm a lot more picky now. For example, I'm really hesitant now of even taking kind of reversals. I'm really not trying to take things that are in the middle of a range or things that are in between, like, yesterday's range. I really want things to either be above, previous day highs or below previous day lows to go long or short. I'm really trying to pick only the highest quality trades, because I'm not coming into each day saying, hey, how can I make money? I'm coming in saying, how can I take a trade that's got a high probability and high win rate within my system? And the more and more that I'm able to do that, the more I'm able to detach from the outcomes and the P&L, and just feel, hey, did I follow my rules? Did I follow the game plan I came in with the day? And did I execute the way that I should? And if I did, then I'm okay with that. And so it's becoming a lot more process oriented, which honestly makes it less stressful. It makes it less emotional. It makes it easier in a way. Feeling like I have to battle with myself and, it's really hard to describe, but that's been one of the biggest. And I think it's just come from reps and experience. And, every trade, for example, when I first started and since I've only been taking, like, call it one or two, each trade would either make you feel like this is so easy, I'm gonna make a ton of money, or this is the worst. I'm never gonna be profitable. I shouldn't be born, kind of thing. If you lose a trade, and I compare a lot to bodybuilding, but it's just like one workout, right? One workout doesn't dictate how your year's going to go. One workout doesn't, if it's bad, good, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of one data point. And I'm thinking that a lot more about my trading, specifically the losses for sure. And a lot of the losses that I'm taking now, they are data points. For example, I was trying to figure out today if, the opening range retest and pullback to VWAP, if that's less probability in my favor, if it's 10:30 in the session versus if it's at 10, and how far it is from the peak of the day and how long we sold off, all those little things. Does that change the probability that we're gonna see high of day again, or that the bounce is going to be as strong off of the opening range and previous day high? And then, how much should I incorporate, the cues into that equation as well, or what the overall market's doing, whether it's, probably going to go back up or not. And so even though I took that L today, it's like, that's where my mind went, was looking at those things. And the next time I see that setup, okay, that's going to be another data point for me. Okay, what time was that at? What was the overall market doing? Okay, maybe that's a better, so all these, they don't have as much of an impact on me as a person, and really just me trying to analyze, how does this work or not work within my system, and how can I tweak it going forward. And the more that I can kind of just narrow it down and have this have these parameters that I understand that I need to follow on a daily basis, I think it's because someone was saying, it's like, you think 3 months, 6 months, a year is a lot of data. It's not. Like 3 years, 5 years, like that's a lot of data. And so first you got to find out what you're going to trade, and narrow it down enough to know exactly what you're supposed to take. Then that's when you start refining it, and you have to actually stick to that. That's a lot of the issue, is like, especially those times when you lose and you're like, I want to make it back. Like, so you'll take something that's looks good because you watch a lot of technical analysis, you see a lot of trades, this could work, but it's not within your system, and it's not, it's not helping your data, it's just dirtying it. And so that's kind of where we're at. But honestly, I know I talk a lot about the mistakes because that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on where to improve. I'm doing a lot of things right, and I can see that. It's just hard to articulate. The P&L does show it over the past kind of 2 months now. And I'm really happy about that. And that's why I'm taking this decision to size up a little bit, is to really increase the R multiple and allow my winners to run a bit more. Now that I feel like, my trade win percentage is in a good spot. And so it's going to be challenging to want to continue to stay in that sizing if I catch a bunch of losers in a row. But I'm going to do my best to, have the confidence, stay patient, continue to take the trades within my system, and see kind of where it ends us up. My goal for literally for this year, by year end, with this style of trading, which I think is very difficult, is to really just be break even on this. And someone asked me the other day, it's like, oh, why don't you just, if you think swing trades would be easier, why don't you do that? Or you don't think that? It's like, because this is the way that I want to get good at trading. This is the system. Like, I believe that I have the characteristics to be able to be good at this style. And it's not about the money at this point. It's about me getting good at this specific way of trading. If I wanted to just go make money, like, I would do that. I would go buy a stock, it'd go up. Like, I can do that. I know how to do that. But it's not about that. And that's where I really haven't felt the need to scale this account or anything yet, because the data is not showing me that. I'm hopeful that, by year end, the data will show that, and we can start to, push things a little bit more. in terms of sizing and stuff. But I also understand that like you're trying to lose as little as you can during the learning phase. And, we haven't seen that hockey stick shape of the P&L yet. And so there's really no point for me to um, try and challenge myself in that way. And so there's plenty of things for me to kind of work on until then. But this is a really positive update. I've been really happy with my trading, and it's never going to be one of these things where you take a trade and then or the flip of the switch, and the next thing you know, you're the best trader and you're going to make a ton. Like it's always going to be this. I have to show up every single day in the right headspace. I have to do the prep work, and I have to execute like I know I need to in order to add it up one day at a time, right? Same thing with bodybuilding. You can't build a physique on one workout. You can't build it in 1 year. Like it takes time and consistency, and that's kind of the approach that I have with this. And so we're going to continue to do that. We'll see where we're at in another month. Hopefully we can claw back some more of this drawdown. If we do have success with the sizing up, then it should happen more quickly. But also the other thing is the market has definitely become a lot more challenging. And so part of me feels like we're sizing up at the wrong time in the market environment. We're definitely consolidating, definitely seeing a lot more sideways action, seeing a lot more kind of high a day and then rejections, not really getting continuation. And so what I can't have is, I take half my position off at 2R and then we come back and stop at a break even, because if I'm entering my full trade there and I'm hitting stop loss with my full loss, then it's likely that those are going to end up being the same and 1-to-1, and then that's not going to be a positive kind of P&L curve. And so I'll be mindful of that. And really the way that I'll try to manage that is not through sizing. I'll try to manage that through just not taking trades. If I see that the environment isn't really ripe for continuation, which is really needed in the break and retest, then it's likely that I'll just try and scale back trades that I'm taking. But yeah, that's where we're at. Trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. That's pretty much it. Yeah, we'll see where we're at. We've made a couple tweaks over this past month, meaning moving out to the weeklies and then sizing up. So we'll see kind of what the data says about that in another month. Maybe give another update, August, September, something like that. So anyways, Zach out.